Absolutely. Here's a fully written story draft for your YouTube video with a powerful hook, an intro, and a 10-paragraph story. Tailored for your channel, Tales and Turns. I've made sure it builds suspense, emotion, and leaves the audience inspired. She was a simple woman, dressed modestly, walking through the grandest ballroom she had ever seen. Every eye in the room followed her, but not with admiration. The billionaire she was about to marry didn't even recognize her until one shocking moment changed everything forever. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Tales and Turns. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We love connecting with our viewers from around the world. Now, let's get into a story that proves how life can flip in the blink of an eye. She had never imagined attending a billionaire's wedding, let alone being mistaken for a stranger. Maria had always lived a quiet life, working at a small cafe and spending her evenings painting in her tiny studio apartment. Elegance and wealth had always seemed like a world apart from her own. But today, fate had other plans. She had been invited to the wedding by a distant relative who insisted she attend, and though hesitant, she had decided to go. From the moment she stepped into the grand hall, whispers followed her. Guests in glittering gowns and tailored suits looked her over, eyebrows raised at her simple dress and modest appearance. Maria tried to ignore the stares, focusing instead on the soft music and delicate floral arrangements. But the closer she got to the front, the more she realized something was terribly wrong. Security was approaching her, their expressions tight and unyielding. "You can't be here," one of them said, his voice cold. "This is a private wedding." Maria's heart sank. She had been thrown out before even the ceremony had begun. Confused and embarrassed, she tried to explain, but the guard's resolve didn't waver. Guests began whispering more audibly, their judgments slicing through her like icy daggers. She felt like an intruder in a world she had never imagined she'd touch. But then, a sudden hush fell over the room. The groom, a man whose face was plastered on magazine covers and business headlines, had noticed the commotion. He strode forward, his gaze fixed on Maria. At first, his eyes were narrowed, calculating, annoyed by the interruption. But then, something shifted. Recognition. A flash of memory crossed his face, a recollection that made him freeze in disbelief. "Maria," he said, his voice a mixture of shock and awe. The guard stepped back instantly, sensing a shift in authority. Maria blinked, her own heart racing, as she realized that this man, this billionaire she had assumed barely knew her existence, was speaking to her by name. The whispers in the room turned into a stunned silence. Everyone turned to see the simple woman at the center of this unbelievable revelation. It turned out that Maria was the bride. Long ago, before the world knew him as a billionaire, he had met her in a quiet moment, a chance encounter that had changed his life without him even realizing it. They had exchanged letters, shared dreams, and then life had pulled them apart, each believing the other was lost to the chaos of the world. And now, years later, destiny had brought them back together in the most dramatic way imaginable. The room seemed to hold its breath as the groom stepped closer, taking Maria's hands in his. The tension in the air was electric, a mix of disbelief, joy, and admiration. Guests who had sneered moments ago now looked on in awe as the story unfolded right before their eyes. The simple woman who had been thrown out was now standing at the center of the most extraordinary love story of the year. Tears welled in Maria's eyes as the realization sank in. Every harsh word, every judgmental glance, every moment of doubt she had felt melted away. In that instant, she understood that life had a way of revealing truth in the most dramatic fashion, teaching her that humility, patience, and grace could hold incredible power. She had never wanted to be the center of attention. But now she could see that her quiet, genuine heart had always been enough. The wedding resumed, but with a new sense of wonder. Conversations were hushed, smiles were tentative yet warm, and admiration replaced judgment. Maria walked down the aisle with the man she had loved from afar, now standing proudly beside her as the world watched. In that moment, she didn't just become a bride. She became a symbol of destiny, of love conquering pride and prejudice, of life rewarding those who quietly stay true to themselves. As the night drew to a close, guests whispered among themselves about the miraculous turn of events. Maria and her groom stood together, holding hands, their eyes locked in a shared understanding that transcended words. The simple woman who had been thrown out had changed the life of a billionaire. And, in turn, he had reminded the world that love cannot be measured by appearances or wealth. It is measured by recognition, by sincerity, and by the courage to hold on to the right person, even when life seems determined to pull you apart. And so, Maria's story became a legend in its own right, shared far and wide, inspiring countless hearts. The woman who was underestimated, dismissed, and almost cast aside had proven that destiny has a way of unveiling itself in the most spectacular ways. And as the night ended, the applause, the tears, and the cheers told a story far greater than a wedding. It told a story of faith, patience, and the unstoppable force of love. If you want, I can also create a super punchy, click-worthy YouTube description and hashtags to go with this story that will maximize reach and engagement. Do you want me to do that next?